Pray for healing, that the Lord would use this time to further his message, to further the gospel, to further salvation. It is so important for the church to identify her own roots and understand who she is so that we can be a voice, that we would not be silent, that we would not fall to the propaganda, that we would not fall to the machine. Hey, this is Megann Marcellino, and I want to thank you so much for pulling up a seat today with me at Generations at the Table. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. You know, today is kind of a somber conversation. I want to talk to you about embracing love and rejecting hate. And ultimately, I want to talk to you about some of the things that we're seeing with the rise in anti-Semitism. You know, what happened in Washington, D.C. Recently, really just like it sat so heavy in my heart. And even talking to you about it now, it's emotional for me because what I saw was a young couple with potential. I saw a young couple that could lead a life of legacy and impact. I saw myself. I saw my husband. You know, Paul and I met in Pennsylvania originally when I was just 16 years old. And he would have been just, I guess, about 18, about to turn 18. We were young. And, you know, we didn't get married until I was 21 and later, but we met, you know, in the Northeast, I guess is what you would say. And we were a Messianic couple. We were people who loved Jesus and we were passionate about that message. And so what I saw happen in DC just resonated with me because as soon as it happened on my social feed, I began seeing people that knew this couple, and not like, these aren't like, you know, close friends of mine, but acquaintances. And I was like, who are they? And then to find out that they were believers and that they were part of, you know, ultimately our community, it just grieved my heart. And it grieved my heart as a mom in a unique way, because it's like, I'm raising children in this world and look at the hate against them because of who they are. And so it made me feel small, and it made me feel like, how do I have a voice into your life? How do I have a voice of support into their life? And how do I, as a mom, ultimately not instill fear, but instill wisdom, instill boldness, and instill a love for our roots and our heritage and who we are and who we are called to be? But what I want to talk to you about as a viewer is that this is also who you are, that through the one new man, this is who you are called to be. And we come against this hate by embracing love. And we come against this by embracing the identity of who we are truly called to be in Yeshua, the Messiah, and recognizing the heritage of our faith and recognizing that this separation was never called, you know, it was never supposed to be, that it is what has happened, but we are bridging that gap. We are mending that fence. We are becoming a bridge. In Hebrew, it's a kesher. We are a bridge of restoration, a bridge of healing. And as we advance the kingdom forward and as we unlock kingdom destinies, we do so through an understanding of the lens of our faith and the Jewish roots. You know, my dad wrote a book, Reclaiming Our Forgotten Heritage, and that was strictly about reclaiming that which was lost. And we are here today in the world climate because of what has been lost, because of a disconnect, a misunderstanding that has caused fear, that has caused animosity. And now we are seeing, you know, a tremendous rise in anti-Semitism. So it is not something that is new. It is something that has been rooted, you know, deep. And I'm not here to even discuss that with you. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about, you know, when you look back at World War II and you see, like, how did we get there? It didn't begin with gas chambers. That was like the ending of it. It didn't begin there. It began with a narrative of hate and of animosity and of questioning. It began with propaganda and cultural narratives. That's how it started. And that's what you're seeing now in the world today. So for me as a mom, it's like, gosh, this is so concerning what we're seeing. And what you ultimately want for your children is not a future that is being tainted with these worldviews. But here's where I think is like, we need like a wake up call. And even like, I wasn't totally aware of these numbers, but listen to this. In 2020, the ADL, which is like the Anti-Defamation League, that they recorded 2,024 anti-Semitic incidents, marking the third highest year since tracking in 1979. Okay, so that was 2024. In 2021, it jumped to 2,717. In 2022, it jumped to 3,697, 3,697 incidents, which is a 30% or 36% rise that year, 34% rise the year before. In 2023, there was a 140% increase. The ADL reported 8,873 incidents. In 2024, they documented 9,354 incidents. Well, obviously we're in 2025 and those numbers have not yet been reported, but it's increasing, it's rising exponentially. And what is this driven by? It's driven by this narrative of hate. So how do we combat it? As men, as women, as families, as communities, we combat it with love. We combat it with education. We combat it with an understanding of who we are. And it is so important for the church to identify her own roots and understand who she is so that we can be a voice, that we would not be silent, that we would not fall to the propaganda, that we would not fall to the machine. There's a book, it's a young adult book called The Book Thief. And I don't know if you've ever read it, but I read it years ago. And what stuck with me was there's a scene in there where they're burning the books. And what were the books? The books were the history. They were the identity. They were things that countered the narrative that they were trying to speak. They came against the cultural norms. They fought it with their words. They fought it with the story and the truth. They fought it with the truth. And what was happening in Nazi Germany at the time? They were burning it because they didn't want it known. So the only way the truth is known is if we speak it, if we rehearse it, if we write it down, if we remember it. I had a dream just last night, and in the dream, I don't remember much about it, but there was a woman in it, and she said to me, "Does the word Haggadah mean anything to you?" And my response was, "Do you know who we are?" And when I began researching this morning, what is the Haggadah? What does this mean? It is the telling of the story of the Exodus. It is the retelling of God's faithfulness. But why do we do that every year at Passover? We do it so that we don't forget who we are. We do it so that we don't forget whose we are. We do it so that it is an identity imprint into the deepest recesses of our heart and our soul. Do not forget the faithfulness of the Lord. Do not forget what he brought you out of, what he delivered you from, and the promised land that he's delivering you to. Do not forget. Remember. This is why it is the telling and the retelling. And every year we remind ourselves and we remind our families because that identity is so crucial. Why? Because it is that identity that raises up voices like mine, voices like yours, voices of love, who are rooted in who we are called to be, and therefore we cannot embrace this hate. And we speak love, and we speak peace, and we speak shalom. So sometimes there's confusion about our spiritual roots. I saw this video it was on Instagram, but it was a recap of someone's TikTok. And I went back to try and find the numbers on it. And I think the video has been taken down, but it was a young guy who has some type of Christian affiliation. I don't remember exactly what. And I can't remember if he has 3.2 million followers or if it was 3.2 million views, but he was vomiting hate against the nation of Israel, vomiting hate against Jewish people. And he was just spewing this narrative that what happened in DC was justified because of what is happening in Gaza. And it was just it was so disgusting and it was so disturbing because even if, how could you justify in any way what happened to this innocent couple? How could you hold them accountable and hold them responsible that you would, take them out like that? It was such a strange, basically, he just said it's all justified and continue on, that this is a war path and this was their war cry. Massive influence into the generation below my generation, a massive voice. So what I want to encourage you as listeners is to be a voice that counteracts that. And it may seem like we're small and it may seem like it's insignificant in the midst, but how do we do that? As a family, we're choosing to do that by continuing to embrace Shabbat. And every time we align our life with that rhythm, we are speaking into the identity of who we are called to be and whose we are, that we are a family of rest, that we are a family of covenant, that we are a family that is committed to honoring the times and the seasons of the Lord, and we live in alignment, and that this is peaceful. And that is a voice into our community that they see that we're different. You know, our family doesn't show up for events on Friday. We show up for Shabbat. We are marked with difference, but I believe that is just like this really silent voice and testimony to what the Lord has done in our life, that they would say of us, yeah, those people, they keep Shabbat, that we are rooted in the Jewish roots of our faith, but that is a voice of hope and love. Romans 11:17 says this, you being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. Ephesians 2:14-16 says, our reconciling peace is Jesus, is Yeshua. He made us one by breaking down every wall of prejudice that separated us. When we embrace our Jewish roots, we are partakers of the covenant. This is not a fad. The one new man is not a fad. It is a lifestyle and it is a message, but it is the message that comes against and balances all this hate that is being spoken. But it is not a message that we just speak with our voice. It is a message that we live. Every time you pull up a chair at the Shabbat table, every time you celebrate the feast, every time you give your finances according to biblical, the mandates of the feast and the instructions and all the things that are opportunities for blessings, you are a voice that is coming against that message of anti-Semitism, that is coming against that message of hate. Every time you live in obedience to those instructions, that opportunity, you are embracing love. You are rejecting hate. Genesis 12:3 says, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And John 13:35 says, by this all will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. Disciples have love for one another. Disciples are invested in and promote love and promote unity. And that is the message of the one new man, that we would love one another, that we would be a bridge, that we would not embrace hate. So what can we do? We can speak the truth. We can share resources about the roots of our faith. Every time you share a message about the one new man, every time you share about how your family has embraced Shabbat, embraced the feast, every time you share something from Curt Landry Ministries or another ministry that is similar, you are being a voice of love. You are being a voice of reconciliation. And most of all, you're being a voice of truth. And then you can teach your children how to stand with Israel and the Jewish people from a biblical perspective. I cannot tell you how important it is that you begin imparting these truths at home, because the world is trying to speak to them otherwise. And for my kids, it may be a little bit different because of their actual physical roots. Like there's a very clear understanding of who they are. But for you, maybe you need to instill that a little bit more. But I would encourage you, keep your children around the Shabbat table. Make it fun. Make it something that you enjoy. Every time you bake challah with your kids, you are instilling something fun, but you are instilling a pattern of identity. When you celebrate the feast and you build sukkahs, you are instilling a pattern of identity and family and culture, but it's fun. It's something that they can embrace. When you celebrate Passover and the Seder and Hanukkah, Purim, all of these things are rooted in joy and in celebration and in family. But you are helping your children remember the roots of their faith. And I believe that as we do that and we instill that your voice in them, your voice in your family, your voice in your community is going to be louder than the voice of hate that would try and come against them. Isaiah 56, 6-7, this is the complete Jewish Bible, says, everyone who keeps Shabbat and does not profane it and holds fast to my covenant, I will bring them to my holy mountain. Who is everyone? You are everyone. I am everyone. Everyone is everyone. And a Shabbat is not just a Friday night, through Saturday evening experience. Every feast is considered a Shabbat. So everyone who keeps these days that are holy unto the Lord and holds fast to his covenant, he will bring them to his holy mountain. What is that? The holy mountain is where we have relationship. The holy mountain is where we have a face-to-face encounter. The holy mountain is where we are given instruction. Is that what you want? Are you seeking relationship? Are you seeking instruction? Are you seeking a face-to-face encounter? If you are, then you should be embracing the feasts of the Lord. You should be embracing the Shabbats of the Lord. You should be living those in such a way that it is not only seen by your family and your community, but it is a voice of love and it is a voice of truth. And this is how we counteract it. As men, as women, as mothers, as fathers, as wives and as husbands, we are not small. We may be small in the scheme of the world, and the hate may seem overwhelming. But in our own family, and at our own tables, we have a voice of truth to each other and into the next generation to remind them who they are, whose they are, and who we are called to be. If your heart is heavy for the state of the world and the hate that we see, we balance that with love. We balance that with truth. We balance that by embracing who we are all truly called to be. So today I am praying. I'm going to pray with you right now. Father, I ask that this message would go out far and wide. And I ask that even the audience today would share it with someone that they love. And that as we embrace who we are called to be, as we embrace love, as we embrace you as a God of love and your instruction, that our love, that your love for the world, that would go out and that it would come against this spirit of hate, the spirit of fear, the spirit of animosity, that we would be bridge builders from generation to generation, from table to table, from Shabbat to Shabbat, from feast to feast, that we would build your bridge of love and unity and of truth, that we would speak the truth of who you are, and the truth of who you have called us to be, and the truth of your chosen people. Thank you so much for joining me today for this important message. Thank you so much for having a heart for the nation of Israel. Thank you so much for having a heart for our ministry and our family. Please pray for us. Pray for our community. Pray for those who are hurting, and pray for healing. That the Lord would use this time to further his message, to further the gospel, to further salvation, and that you and I we would further the message of the one new man and what the Lord has for us, and the revival that he is calling us to, and the love that he is calling us to, and the hope and the faith. There is so much good in store. You can feel that we are on the cusp of it. Let it not be tainted in fear. Let it not be tainted in hate. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to being with you next week. Same time, same place.